I was born in the year 2000. My childhood gaming began with PlayStations and PCs. I never imagined India had its own gaming past before that. But then, while browsing Reddit, I stumbled upon this post on the r/NES subreddit. Someone had posted a few pics of a console that looked like the NES, but their name was different. That post pulled me down a rabbit hole. One post led to another, then to vintage ads, YouTube snippets, etc. What I discovered was not just about obscure consoles, it was an almost lost era of Indian gaming. The era before PlayStations, before Xboxes, before official game imports, and I decided to dig a little deeper. This is the story of India's first gaming consoles, how they appeared, why they vanished, and why they shouldn't be forgotten. I opened the comments of the post, and the most I could figure out was that they were an officially licensed product, at least initially. They cost about 5,000 rupees back then. Now it's around 67,000, and that some guy tried to collect about 10 of these over the last 15 years. I also found a link to this ad.
To turn, forehand lob down the line. Ooh, what a return! A flying kick and the ninja's down. But here comes the most dangerous obstacle of them all. Will Mario defeat the evil dragon? Look at that giant bird! Iceman's fallen! Climb, Iceman, climb! He's made it! The champion has made it!
Samurai, the world's largest selling electronic TV game, now in India.
Please. Samurai. 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 Yeah. Samurai. Yeah.
Don't get mad, get even. Samurai, the electronic TV game system.
But I didn't get all the answers to the questions that I had. So I used Google, as one does, and I found this thread on videogamesage.com. This thread was a treasure trove of information. The author of this post was this collector going by the username Bowser. According to their post, they obtained a complete in-box Samurai unit with original packaging, paperwork, manuals, and inserts. In the post, they talk about what they found, made comparisons between all the different versions of the Samurai that they owned, the game cartridges, and also about all the accessories that came with it. Then the thread goes deeper into the legitimacy of the NES consoles released by this company. I'm not going to go any deeper in this video, but you can check it out yourself. The link is in the description. While you're there, also consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. To understand these Samurai and consoles like it, we have to rewind to the 1980s. This was India before the internet, before cable television, before gaming was even a recognizable concept for most households. Entertainment meant Doordarshan broadcasts, board games, or street cricket. The television was a single shared family object, not an interactive device. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away, gaming was transforming rapidly. In Japan, Nintendo launched the family computer or Famicom in 1983, and 2 years later, the NES debuted in the United States. It became a cultural phenomenon. Super Mario Bros., Contra, Duck Hunt, these games defined a generation. But in India, things were different. Imported consoles were rare and expensive. Customs duties and a weak supply chain meant only a small elite, often with relatives abroad, ever saw one. For most of the country, gaming was something distant, something you heard about, something never experienced firsthand. Then, sometime in the late 80s, something unexpected began appearing in the Indian electronic shops. They weren't official Nintendo consoles, but they looked familiar. These were Famiclones, unlicensed copies of the NES, manufactured primarily in Taiwan and China, imported in bulk, and then rebranded for the local market. In India, they appeared under different names like Samurai, Microgenius, Gold Star, Mitashi, and Dynavision. Some were near perfect visual copies of the NES, others were oddly shaped futuristic boxes. Some had built-in games, others came bundled with yellow 72-pin cartridges. On their packaging, bold labels promised over 9,000 in one games, an outrageous claim that typically meant the same 10 games repeated endlessly. But those 10 games were enough. Super Mario, Contra, Duck Hunt, Adventure Island, they became cultural milestones for a generation that was otherwise cut off from the global gaming boom. By the early 90s, these consoles began to spread through word of mouth. They weren't sold in high-end gaming shops because back then there were none. Instead, they appeared in toy stores, local markets, and neighborhood electronic shops, often displayed between radios and cassette players. Some companies even ran television ads presenting these clones as the future of family entertainment. And in many homes, they were. For millions of Indian children, this was their first experience with interactive entertainment. Multiplayer meant fighting over controllers, taking turns after losing a life, and gathering friends around a single CRT screen. Technical issues were constant. Controllers broke easily, cartridges collected dust, and then there was the legendary cartridge ritual, blowing into the connector like a magic spell, hoping that the game would finally start. These consoles were cheap, fragile, and full of quirks, but they were also magical, portals to worlds that the Indian kids had never seen before. The story behind how these consoles reached India is a study in creative distribution. Since Nintendo had no official presence in the country, local companies began importing unbranded consoles from East Asia. Once in India, these devices were repackaged, rebranded, and sometimes slightly modified to suit local preferences. Manuals were printed in English or Hindi. Stickers with a name like Samurai were applied over original branding. Warranty labels were added. It was a grey market, not entirely legal, but not hidden either. This informal network of importers and retailers effectively built India's first gaming market, years before multinational gaming companies recognized the country's potential. By the late 90s, however, the era of the Famiclones was coming to an end. The arrival of the Sony PlayStation changed everything. CD-based gaming offered massive worlds, advanced graphics, and experiences that the 8-bit consoles just couldn't match. At the same time, personal computers were becoming more affordable, and cyber cafes emerged as cultural hubs. Games like Counter-Strike, Age of Empires, and Road Rash dominated urban India. Pirated PlayStation discs sold for around 50 rupees, offering hours of gameplay at minimal cost. Against this wave, the Samurai and its counterparts faded quickly. Shelves that once displayed yellow cartridges were now filled with modded PlayStations and second-hand PCs. For most families, the old consoles were packed away into cupboards as old relics of a brief, extraordinary chapter. Today, the Samurai and similar consoles have become rare artifacts. A few survive in the hands of collectors who store and preserve them as a part of gaming history. Occasionally, listings appear on online marketplaces. Old boxes, loose cartridges, sometimes entire consoles. Many no longer work, but their presence tells a story. The story of India's first contact with video games. These consoles weren't official, they weren't licensed. Their build quality was questionable, but they introduced millions of Indian children to gaming, long before the market was formally established. For many, they represent a shared cultural memory, one that sits between the analog world of the 1980s and the digital explosion of the 2000s. The history of gaming in India is often told as if it began with the PlayStation and mobile phones, but It began earlier, quietly, in markets and electronic shops, on CRT televisions, through imported clones and improvised branding. The Samurai console and its contemporaries built the foundation for India's gaming culture and then disappeared into obscurity. This was Insert Disc. Thank you for watching and see you next time.